explore the situation of children in Ghana. And this morning, I'm going to focus on those who don't have parents, or those who don't have protection, or those who don't have provision for their special needs. Children who fall into those categories are normally found in what we'd call childcare institutions. You can call them orphanages, you can call them foster homes, or you can call them children's homes. My guest is Ibrahim Kamaldeen. He's from the Institute of Human Rights and Social Policy in Edinburgh in the United Kingdom, where he's writing his PhD. Well, he's done a good bit of research on this, and I'm wondering what I can learn from him and from you. If you have any thoughts, ideas, comments, questions, or suggestions on this topic, I'd like to encourage you, in fact welcome you warmly, to share them with me, with Ibrahim, and with everyone else by posting them onto the TV3 Sunrise page on Facebook. Intentions, actions, and outcomes is the way that I want us to look at it. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise. It's nice to meet you, Ibrahim. So just for clarity, do you make a distinction between an orphanage, a foster home, and what one would call a children's home? Because sometimes I'm not clear about which is which, or whether they are all the same thing.
Yes, please. I think it's worth mentioning that the Institute of Human Rights and Social Policy is based here in Ghana, where I am currently working together with Brother Pierre. But I'm actually a PhD candidate studying my PhD at the University of Edinburgh. So the institute is not based in Edinburgh, but right here in Accra.
Oh, that's even better.
Yes,
that's even better.
So to your question, an orphanage is basically an institution, which is stately managed, where children who do not have parents are kept so that they can be protected. Provision is made for them. That is state managed. A foster home, on the other hand, in Ghana here, which is very rare, is just a place where children who do have parents, but for the sake of the fact that they cannot be taken care of at some point in time in their lives, are relocated. It's just like a pass on place where people go there temporarily and they can be relocated back to their families.
Interesting decision. What about children's homes?
Children's home, on the other hand, is a blend of the two. It's a hybrid of foster homes and orphanages. So in children's homes, you can have children who do have parents, yet they are kept there just because the social services are negotiating. There's currently a dispute between the families, and they are negotiating so that they can go back to them, or those children who are living in children's homes may not have parents as well. So that's the distinction between the three.
Okay, if you found yourself, if you could mentally put yourself in the shoes of an orphaned or vulnerable child, in which of these three situations would you prefer to be in terms of just comforts and human rights and future prospects? Would you want to be in an orphanage? Would you want to be in a foster home? Or would you want to be in a children's home in Ghana?
In Ghana here, I would rather not be in any of them, because the conditions prevailing in those particular institutions are, to say the least, appalling. Because as it is now, even though there's some form of legislation in our Children's Act, as to whether we have a comprehensive policy that monitors or guides whatever is happening in those children's homes, is what some of us who are working with children are questioning. Because if you look at the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, that is the overarching document that governs the human rights of children globally. Article 3 of that says, which we refer to as the welfare principle, says that anything that is to be done on behalf of the child, either by the state, the family, or any other person, should be in the best interest of that person. But is that what we see in our children's homes, foster homes? Certainly not.
I have read a good bit of research and studies which seem to indicate that community care, fostering in traditional family settings, is much better for children than fostering in institutions. And it's also much better for everyone because the cost ratio is as high as 1:6. That is to say that what it costs to take care of a child in an institution is 6 times more than what it costs to take care of the same child in an existing family environment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That's precisely what's happening. And luckily enough, in our social cultural systems here in Ghana, the informal or kinship care system is what is prevalent. But even that, some of us are advocating that the government should now develop some form of interest in this particular industry, the kinship fostering, because as it is, some of you who are here in Accra, based in Accra, you see these Kaya people. There's research to suggest that most of them, about a third or more of them who come here to do Kaya, at some point in time were in foster care.
How do you
so you were living?
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, if you were living with your auntie and you don't find that comfortable, you simply run to Accra.
How do you differentiate between foster care and adoption in the cultural and in the contemporary sense? What is the difference? Is it a clear division or is it a blurred line between them?
There is a clear distinction. The two clearly are distinctive.
Fostering is different from adoption.
Fostering is just conceptually, it is a temporal thing where families relocate children or share children. Parentage is not given up in terms of fostering. But whilst in the case of adoption, there is that legal procedure that you need to go through such that you relinquish your duty as a parent to another family. So there's that clear distinction. In the case of fostering, the family still owns the child, the biological family. That's what I mean. By the case of adoption, the birth parents now relinquish the responsibility of the child to another family. So there's that clear distinction.
Okay, I'm looking here at the definitions for what an orphaned or vulnerable child is in Ghana, an OVC. And these are the OVC policy guidelines, and it looks at an orphan. And an orphan is a child who has lost one or both parents, children infected or affected in some way by HIV/AIDS, children who are abused or neglected. So if you see that a child is being abused or neglected, they form into the category of an orphaned or vulnerable child, OVC. Children who find themselves in conflict with the law. Children, who are in need of alternative family care. Children living with disabilities or different abilities. Children living in hard to reach or remote areas where they do not get access to school, education or medical care infrastructure, for example. Children who are affected by the worst forms of child labor. Children who have no home, who find themselves living in the streets, literally. And children who are in need and care protection under Section 18 of Act 560. So it's quite a broad category. And you said that we don't have legislation that's well enough developed to take care of fostering. And you also mentioned that in the traditional context, fostering is quite common. Do you think we could learn something from our traditions?
Yeah, exactly. Precisely so. We could do. That's why we are advocating that the government needs to engage, embark on this campaign so that we could adapt whatever is best intentioned in the traditional setting and just simply legislate that so that we can have a comprehensive policy on that. But just a point of question, the OVA and the OVC, that particular one is orphans and vulnerable
children.
The very first description there, where they talk about somebody losing either a parent or both, covers the orphanage sector of it. The rest is what they refer to as vulnerable group of children.
Okay, John Kofi Broby wants us to look treatment to children that separates these three institutions. Jacob mentioned things that orphanages must be cared for very seriously and the government should help the children go to school. And Avon Saisi says, hello, are orphanage homes not to be supported by government? Ghana government is doing, well, you didn't finish that thought. If you if you have some strong thoughts and ideas on this topic, I'd appreciate it if you share them with me via the TV3 Sunrise page on Facebook. It's easy enough to find. It's TV3 Space Sunrise, and you can recognize it by the logo, the golden S in the yellow circle on the blue background. That's the page that I'm on, and that's the page that you can post to if you want to take a part in my conversation with Ibrahim Kamaldeen from the Institute of Human Rights and Social Policy. How well are we doing in terms of protecting the human rights of children that find themselves in institutions, both public and private, as we sit here today?
As a country, we aren't doing too well at all, because for the informal sector, government rather shies away. We just pretend we are not even aware of such a practice. You mentioned in your introduction, I'm currently in the country conducting a research. Most of children who are in this informal fostering sector aren't even aware of the Children's Act, which is currently the only legislative document that supports them. Neither are those the families, their birth parents or foster parents. So we are not doing too well. We all saw what happened when they went to the Osu Children's Home to perform that documentary. So the question is, even in institutions like the Children's Home, where
state-run child care institutions,
yes, state-owned ones like the Osu Children's Home, where such abuses go on day in, day out, how much more where the law cannot go?
Junior Foko chips in with statistics. Says UNICEF has stated that we have 5,000 or more children living in orphanages and other residential care institutions in Ghana. And you are saying that we need to develop alternative systems such as foster care. Are you talking about institutional foster homes or individual foster care?
The community-based ones.
Community-based ones.
That's what we already had before we borrowed this institutionalized care from Europe.
Is that to say that the culture that we are so proud of, we keep talking about our rich culture, is actually failing when it comes to taking care of children who are vulnerable or orphaned?
Sadly, yes. And that is because the government is not interested in whatever goes on within the private sphere.
What about the private sphere itself? I mean, us as individuals, as people in society who care, do you think we actually care enough about what goes on behind the walls of privately owned orphanages, foster homes and other children's homes? Now some call themselves schools. They just change their name and paint their walls, and everybody thinks that everything is okay. No one really knows what's going on behind the walls in terms of care and love and protection, or abuse and neglect.
That is the danger. And as part of our program at the Institute of Human Rights and Social Policy, that is what our agenda is about. The main barrier, or what the hindrance to furthering or promoting the rights of children, is partly ignorance. Most of us are not aware of what it takes or what even constitutes abuse or neglect. So at the Institute of Human Rights and Social Policy, we have these 2-week short courses where people are sensitized. Anybody who works with children, either a family, a church, a school, or a non-governmental organization, can come to be sensitized on what constitutes abuse, what constitutes child welfare, what it is that you need to do as a parent, as a family, or as an organization, just to promote the welfare of children in this country.
Now, most of our viewers seem to still be focusing on institutional care of children as opposed to the alternative that best care and research around the world suggests is a much better option, which is individual home care. Why do you think we've moved from our traditional values to the institutional ones, where when a child is poor, the family feels that they should just give this child up to somebody who's running childcare, perhaps as a business, and not even taking loving care of this child?
It's partly for convenience sake. I mean, on the part of the government, they would rather just do it. The institution, how many institutional cares do we have in the country? At least, or at most, is they are based in the regional capitals. No district has an institutionalized care system. So it's partly for convenience sake, and partly because we as a people, I mean Ghanaians, we see anything European to be good for us. So we are that amenable to whatever is coming from Europe.
Do you think that the state is doing the best it can in the institutional context and in the community context when it comes to taking care of OVCs?
For the community, I'll start with the latter. The community, the state doesn't even play any role. In terms of the institutional ones, we have some legislative instruments in place that govern what they are supposed to be doing. But even that monitoring and evaluation is very poor.
What is the role of poverty in all of this? Because people generally say, well, summarize, say, well, the reason why we see this is because of poverty.
Yeah, at the heart of the problem is poverty, but the state can also now make it mandatory on parenting or how to parent, education, putting the necessary legislation in place so that if you neglect your child, any person below 18, if you see that person not going to school, being on the street, doing what he or she is not supposed to do, the government should put measures in place so that parents can be held responsible for their children.
Interesting thoughts being shared with me by Ibrahim Kamaldeen from the Institute of Human Rights and Social Policy, writing his PhD at the Edinburgh University in the United Kingdom. I want to thank everyone who's joined in the conversation and expressed thoughts, opinions and feelings on the topic, all there on the page of TV3 Sunrise on Facebook. Emmanuel Adu thinks we need to appeal to the general public, the government and non-governmental organizations to rush to the aid of such children because the conditions and situations that they face are very appalling. I would agree with you on that.